I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Please, Lord, forgive them. They try to hold back and chillin' like they ain't know it was written. Break every chain. Wanna free my people from mental prisons. With your eyes on the sparrow, I know we'll narrow divisions. Hope is the boat to keep us afloat just as you envision. Faith to erase the pain from all of our people slain. Destined for change, with actions to back up your spoken name. When they throw dirt on ours, we use it to plant gain. When it rains, we go greater together, no matter the weather. Trust these dark days, gonna get better. Know that love will be the light to guide all our endeavors. And even if the tide should rise, we'll ride it forever. Why? We are mighty, we'll fight for our lives, cause we're dying to live. Future is ours, the timing is now. Black and we proud, we saying it loud, we gave it our all. There's so much more to give, we breaking down all the walls. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Never backing down for the cause. Try to put our life on pause, cause we move in the image of God. No matter the hate that's spoken, our spirits remain unbroken. The divine man says you can't count us out. We are the answer. From the youth to the elders, ain't what you can tell us. Style and brilliance of mind, heart is bright as sunshine. Warrior spirits alive, so no, we won't be denied. So vibration is high and the frequency so angelic, like rise up, people come on, rise up, rise up, rise up. Ooh, I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise. I tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up.
Rise up. You already know what time it is. Well, it's a little later than normal, but you already know what time it is on the check-in. It's Soundbytes and Central Radio. African consciousness is the claim.
Our world is the aim.
We're in conversation pertinent to our diasporic landscape, to you, and you, all across the globe. To ensure fortification of our family the world over. Absolutely. So I'm Hasir Nefera as always, and this is
Nefera too, my IT Ra.
Yes, indeed. So please join the check-in fam. Make sure you join the conversation today. Make sure you following us and liking us on Facebook, as well as subscribing to us on YouTube. We are live on Facebook and on YouTube. So make sure you hit us up on there. Subscribe to the YouTube at Soundbytes International Radio.
Thanks.
Make sure you also follow and like us on Facebook, Soundbytes INTL Radio. And we are available throughout the week to share these conversations in Soundbytes on our Instagram at Soundbytes International Radio, and you can listen to past episodes on our podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Soundbytes International Radio. So make sure you hit those channels up. Stay in tune with us. Make sure you join the conversation. We want to check in with y'all a little briefly this evening. But we hope you enjoy the conversation. We hope it brings up something to help you kind of break through, right? Every day, every conversation is an opportunity to break through. So that's the idea. So we want to support that with this conversation. So tune in, share the convo, share the broadcast with your peoples. Well, let's get it, fam. So you know what it is.
Yes,
indeed. You want to say something? Oh, okay.
Oh, good. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, yes. So yeah, we want to talk about a few things. One of those things we want to talk about is representation enough, or representation actually is not enough. Actually, And I think within that conversation is really looking at, what does that really mean for folks, right? When we talk about representation, because I think within we examine the matrix. Here at Soundbytes, we constantly examine this matrix and see what in this matrix, if anything at all, which usually never, affords the African, right? What can the African pull from, or find resource, or find true fortification within the matrix, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we know that fortification lies of us matching ourselves outside of what the Matrix has to offer us, right? The Matrix is created as its own dome and experience and history and culture that denies the African the identity in any space that the African is in. And this is about breaking free from that, right? So when we talk about representation and it being enough, or what does enough look like for us? I think that's looking at, when we adapt, right? Because we're very resourceful, very adaptable people, very relationship-based people. We adapt to our surroundings to cope and just find a means to just kind of get through, which is just kind of like almost looking at this thing of the can't beat them, join them mentality that the Matrix tend to put forth. So someone has to win, someone has to lose. So you might as well join the winning team or what have you, which is us, the Matrix. So here we're going to offer you these things to make you think that you're winning, offer you these things to make these are rewards and incentives. We want to incentivize you joining our team by giving you these things, these little piecemeal things. Like here's first black scientist to do this. Here's first black scholar to say this. Here's first black athlete to do this. First youngest black person to a young child to do this, or your first black designer to do this and break these molds and these barriers. But we got to remember that why are these barriers up in the first place? And who define these barriers? Who define these molds? Who define these standards? Who define these structures? And how do we fit into it? And does representation look like a win when we see more of ourselves in the Matrix, right? Given the Matrix history of just kind of the genocide and the constant traumas and tortures to African bodies and African people and African spirits across history, across what we look at now, up to 400 years and counting. What are we looking at when we see like, oh, we're on our faces are on more magazines, our faces are more on billboards, or there's more conversation about black leads in movies and black directors in movies and telling narratives. We keep talking about narrative and what's our story, his story, what are we selling in history, how is that being changed, how is it being maintained, how is it being reinvented, and how are we combating everything in between to ensure that we're represented in the best light, right? So does representation mean just our faces being on more spaces, or do we dig a little deeper and think about what does representation mean for ourselves, how we represent ourselves to each other, right? How do we identify as African to each other and to ourselves, to where those titles and those things and shapes that the Matrix makes for you to fall into actually don't matter, right? And they can put you in any type of box, any type of barrel, any type of housing, or any type of industry, or whatever the case may be. But does that define you and your Africanness and your spirit and your being as African or black, or however you want to identify within that space or that identity? Does it fit you? And we very much believe the answer is no, because with that representation, quote unquote, within the Matrix comes, there's usually give and take, right? Usually give and take. You can have your face here, but you're gonna have to give a piece of what represents you as the African here, right? Because we don't mind your face, but you have to represent, whiteness. You have to represent anti-blackness in some way, which could show up as stereotypes, negatively enforced stereotypes of what black people do or who black people are. Because you got to remember, we look at the media, Western media, American media, the African in the U.S., Black Americans are not represented in the best light in international scope, right? In the international worldview of the Black American is not one of any type of what do you call it? Like a allure, right? There's no allure. It's not exotic, right? If anything, it's at the bottom of the barrel of ways to be, right? Even to other Africans, meaning Africans across the Caribbean, Africans across the diaspora, Africans on the continent. The representation of the African in America, African in the U.S. particularly, is not of goodwill, is not of great intent, is not to build unification, right? At the crux of what the Matrix does, what white centered consciousness does, with what this oppressive structure does, is to maintain the division within the global African community, the diasporic community, because of this warped idea that they're under attack, right? This really out of fear. We have a social structure, a historic global social structure bound in colonialism, bound in whiteness, that is built out of fear of eradication, of fear of going extinct, right? So blackness is in the richness of what blackness is, the richness of what Africanness is, and melanin and all it, and having the root back home to Africa is a threat, right? Because that means genetic annihilation in their eyes. So how can we make sure these people never understand the power in unifying, right? Because clearly that just means we're just out to unify and just stomp all over everybody, which is not the mindset of the African. It's actually the mindset of the Euro-Gentile brain that has this thing where it's conquer or be conquered, kill or be killed. Can't beat them, join them. Someone must win, someone must lose, and we're going to win, and these people are going to lose, even though these people never even knew they were in competition or playing the game in the first place, right? So, and what's happened over time, you look in the U.S. and, across that colonial history, is that the successful warp, the successful indoctrination, successful colonization of the mind has even us and other cultures, other brown cultures, believing, for one, the African in America is at the bottom of the totem pole. They're lazy. They're this. They don't want to do work. They believe it, right? America,
they're willing to believe it.
America is the melting pot of just creating these things, and it's wealth and this whole big the delusion of grandeur that America has created in the face of other folks. America is really a hot mess, but it's created this thing. And if Africans or black people, they're not going to say African, they're going to say black people in America are going to are still in a struggle with all the resources in America, then they're not doing America right. So let's go. They're bootstrap theory. They need to do this. They need to do that. They're always complaining this, and that. These are the tropes that they have. That Western media and propaganda has other folks believe about. Why? Because that's the commerce. You think about America. America's not about people. It's about commerce. It's about business. Slaves, the enslaved peoples, the enslaved Africans in the Americas were bargaining chips. They were tools. They were products. They were assets, right? It's like the slave masters got their reparations for losing slaves because they were assets. They lost their products, right? They lost their product. We were product. Right, and that still goes on today in so many ways. It may not look like direct chattel slavery, but it's still the same thing. When you look at the 13th Amendment in the prison system, right? When you look at how the draft for football season, how those processes look of drafting the biggest, the strongest, the boldest to do our bidding, to make us money and entertain us, right? We're entertainment, where these beastly people that don't feel pain, or we're like, to them we're monsters, we're these anomalies of life, right? That they're still experimenting on to this day, right? Because they're trying to figure it out. How to crack the code of the African, right? So and it's been a centuries long scientific and clinical play to understand the African, not for the sake of creating humanity, for the sake of how can we better our genetic and dominate, and our genetic makeup and dominate and siphon off, right? And not be sick and not have to be in the sun and burn up and all these type of things, and easily be susceptible to diseases. And you got the Black Plague, all these things throughout history that have really plagued European spaces. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of work, and a lot of us don't want to believe that there's a lot of this work just taking place. We very much no, it wouldn't do that. No, this wouldn't. There's people that literally still believe in the government, even when they shout out in the trendy fashion, oh, down with the system, oh yeah, F the police, oh this and that, oh the system don't care about us, meanwhile believing in the system. Make it make sense, because the thing is, you can't have it both ways, right? You can't have it both ways. You can understand what's available to you in the matrix to utilize, but utilizing it in the sake of understanding. I'm in this system. I'm in this matrix. This is what I have available at the moment. These are the This is the it's strategic. It's tactical. This is what I have on my left, on my right, my front, my back to deal with. This is a friend. This is the enemy. This is family. This is that. This is the wages that I'm making. These are the things I have access to. So what can I do to best fortify myself and understanding all these things around me so that I can put my best foot forward, whether it's to one day push, to this revolutionary space or changing the landscape. But even if that is not seen in my lifetime, to at least be able to survive and thrive in a way that's effective for me, and at the very least for me and my family and those around me in my village that I can pull together. So it's that understanding, us utilizing this platform is understanding what's available to us in the matrix and pushing forth the message and being with you all in these conversations each week, while understanding that is still that piece that we need to dismantle. Right. But in the meantime, we're using what we have available to us to make things happen. But that does not change the fact that the system is still at work. That does not change the fact that the matrix is still pushing for any way to have whiteness be the leg up constantly and blackness be at the bottom of the pole, rather than having this conversation of equity and coexistence of humanity and peace and whatever else that gets to look like in their conversation, to have us be right. The African is just longs to be. Right. That's why there's a going along to get along within the system. Right. When you talk about looking trying to find a sweet spot. You look at Tulsa, you know what I mean? And like all those things, all those leg ups they were trying to get after Reconstruction and after trying to fighting through Jim Crow and fighting through Tulsa and all that, the massacres, and constantly trying to get a leg up after being pulled here against the will, and also being told you can't be upwardly mobile unless you utilize our resources. Oh no, yeah, you can't utilize our resources. Right. So it's all right. Well, we're gonna make way, we're told we're gonna make way with what we got, and we're gonna be a thriving space within our Africanness. And it's like, well, fuck, that's not gonna work for us either. So we're just gonna have to burn this down. Yeah. Right. So within that being down, it's like, all right, we just gotta just kind of deal. Is the mindset. We just got to kind of deal and make do with what's going on in the space. Let's talk about integration. Let's talk about and what does that mean, right? Because we've been told
responsibility.
We've been told integration means us working together, right? This lofty idea that we're working together, we're utilizing each other's resources, we're existing in the same spaces without it being an issue. We're going to the same schools. When that's not true, because white folks are not going to the black schools in the 50s and the 60s, right? Black folks are going to the white schools who are being seen through the lens of whiteness as the good education, right? And then also, again, what's the good education? The good education is what they're teaching about European history, and it becomes revisions over time, right? And that good education doesn't center blackness and the history of it in a forwarding manner, if at all, right? You're lucky if you get beyond now maybe a page. I imagine textbook now maybe have a page about slavery. I mean, back when we were growing up, it was like you lucky to get a paragraph that says something. A sentence. You know what I mean? So, and then you look at critical race theory now that wants to just try to hide all that. So we look at we got to really examine these things closely. And it becomes, again, this thing of like pulling teeth with folks and be like, I just don't want to be bothered. I just don't want to have to go through this. Like, I'm making good on my, I have my 6-figure job. I have this nice car. I have this nice house. I have my puppy. I have my kids. I have my husband or my wife or whatever. I have, we're doing good. We're making do in the quote unquote American dream. And the American dream does not have you a part of it at all, because it's made to be a nightmare for you existing as an African. Right. So, that's the idea of just I'm just going to go along until it's over. Right. And defeating any type of idea of what it means to connect with blackness. And then those kids, again, back to the schools of going into these white schools, getting assimilated into white thought, and the mob mentality says, this is the rule. This is what it is. This is the standard. And you're going back home to a place that's been deemed as not worthy of anything. And a place where vacant esteem is built up, whether it's the ghetto or the just not so affluent spaces of Africanness. And you're being told like none of this is good enough to exist in the space. You're going to believe it after a while, especially if you're a youth, right? And that builds up anti-blackness. That builds up self-hate. That builds up resentment for the family, resentment for the father or the mother for not having enough or whatever, and deconstructs that understanding, right? To where we have a lot of what we're dealing with that today, right? The black family is deconstructed a bit, and also the narratives are being pushed forth, that helps deconstruct that mindset as well, because the media has done a successful job of making you believe that there's nothing that they're the ones that's going to give you the information you need, and you just can sit back and relax, right? So there's no critical thinking. There's no I'm going to look deeper into this. There's no I'm going to question this because it doesn't feel right. If the media says it, that's what the media says. This must be what it is. So if it's going to tell me this is A, and my friend is telling me B, I'm gonna believe A because A is the majority rule, right? That's what we're running with. So we have to break through that. We have to combat those particular thoughts. I don't know if you want to jump in. I know I've been talking a bit, but
no, it's good. It's good. We continue to just move it around and just toss it through, because we talk a lot about I personally, I need to have a lot of information. I need a lot of information so that I can come out with creative solutions. We ask people what they would do. They don't have any solutions. They only function from within the parameter because their level of comprehension and their access to resources, information outside of the white center consciousness, they don't have it. So therefore, they don't have. This is why I'm able to reach. Like, we sit here, we have these conversations, we go back and forth, and we brainstorm. This is why it's important for you to be able to do this, African. So we make in this space to supplement the lack that there is in that space. First of all, as each African needs to understand it is your personal responsibility to do your self-education. Right. We can't keep crying over spilt milk. Yes, slavery was bad. Yes, reparations ain't paid us. Yes, they continue to have anti-blackness. All of those things are beyond your control. What can you control?
You do, exactly.
What you can control is yourself. All things are the submission of the mind, and you're not doing a great job at that. So let us supplement you with that. Supplement you because you need more information so you can have access to African-centered thought. Then from African-centered thought comes African-centered decision-making, self-efficacy, self-agency. And just being able to wear your hair natural and accepting the fact that, and saying a few clever words and using a few African words, which is all well and good. It's a part of the process, but that's not a stop point. There's actually something that's supposed to happen within your being and within your mind, where you begin to deprogram the way you used to think, and your natural way of thinking and immediate responses to all things is supposed to be from an African-centered prism. And we all have a lot of ambivalence around that. And this is the part that needs to be chiseled around. So I use myself as an example, because if I start standing people up in here and start examining, they're going to get all uncomfortable. So I don't have no problem using myself as the example, because my life is a social experiment. I'm not telling you nothing that we are not telling you, anything that we have not experienced ourselves and actually done this work. So as a collective, it's important between us that you get this work, because we need critical mass.
Right.
We literally need critical mass. There is a very specific value system and a specific trajectory of what actually a fully functional animated African is. We can't say representation doesn't work. And people who have the white culture experience think that just because you have a brown person in front of a room, well, we covered our bases. We are integrated.
Right.
We're diverse. We got diversity up in here. And here it is, you got this coon up in here. We got this coon. We got this Sambo. We got this person who is a brown person, who is brown on the outside and white on the inside, white because African-centered consciousness, and a fully functional animated African is a vibration. It's a way of being. And this person is not. They're just brown. And they're here. And white people said that was acceptable. And most brown people, because we don't have I wanted to read a post today that our brother Baba Malemu gave us earlier today. And it makes all the sense in the world, because just being brown doesn't cover it. So check this out. He says, from the good press of Baba Wade Noble, he posted this today. Nana Kweku Berku Ii Figemi Sagbudari. And that's his traditional name. One's character is the complexity of mental and spiritual traits which mark a people, and is a detectable expression as evidence of their ability to transmit their own hereditary information. If we're not passing to the next generation of African children the essence of what it is to be African, we have no character. The fundamental evidence of our having character is that we pass in very precise ways what it means to be normal, right? So we don't have a reference point. And I posted today, and I said, listen, I use my powers for the good and not the bad. And I've been talking for many years about people copying me, like trying to walk in my shoes. I've actually seen this happen in real time. When I was like 17 years old, I met a gentleman, and I met the person that he actually was imitating about 3 or 4 years later, and was just flabbergasted and thrown to the bricks, because I'm like, how can a person literally embody an entire another person's vibrational energy, etc.? So there's something called mirroring that our sister Karen touched on last week, which is very surface, and it's something that they even teach you in job interviews. And 83 to 95%, 92% of all communication is nonverbal. So they teach you about something about mirroring. It kind of makes the other person supposed to be a tool to help you interact with a person on a social level. It's supposed to be a good thing, right? But when you're talking about mimicking and actually carbon copying, you become this narcissist. You begin to start to really imitate a person's frequency. And it's a reason for that, because we have not sourced our own our hereditary information onto our next generations. Our previous generation didn't do it. Our current generation isn't doing it. I literally built myself brick by brick. I will tell you this all the day, every day. Now I give homage, and I pay homage to the hundreds and hundreds of research that I did, and synthesize this information and put it into my spirit, regurgitate it, chewed it up, ingested it, put it on, boom, synthesize it, and put it into action, and allow the information, let knowledge change you, let truth change you. This is what's supposed to happen. I don't need to meet people who all they can do is regurgitate quick quotes and call names and talk about what at conferences they've been. I don't need to hear none of that, because you know what? African frequency is supposed to be coming out of you. And we're supposed to be mechanizing that frequency so that we can impart that information, on that hereditary information, on what it means to be a normal African. Now, I decided to call it a fully functional and animated African, because there are action words in there. There's a reason to be doing something. So that gives you something to see. Developmental Minister of Development, Learning and Development, right? So I'm going to help you along that journey to actualize what we are in the process of creating. So there's some action words in there, fully functional and animated African. So that in your mind, you can do your tick, your checks and balances and find out, are you functional? Are you animated? Are you fully functional? Fully at capacity? Are you maximizing output? Are you at your pinnacle place of manifestation? Are you at your creation space? If you're not there, then you got work to do. That's a journey for you to be moving into, to be in application and creation of it, to becoming a fully functional and animated African. And there are Africans across our entire landscape, but at economic level, social class, etc., who are still on the journey of becoming a fully functional and animated African, which is why I tell you, African, chew up the fat and spit out the bone. Right. Because don't judge people, because people are still in their journey. Okay, there is no perfect model. People copy me because there are certain facets of my personality, because we don't have that hereditary information, and that's fine and well and good, but don't stop there. Yeah. Don't take it as Shazam and pizzazz, which I've been telling you guys about for years. I see it. Don't take it as Shazazz and pizzazz because you're looking for salve for your pain. Take it farther. We need to be passing along hereditary information on what it means to be a normal African. We can't deal with people who are having a white cultural experience trying to present in representation to us what Black or what African is. Black is non-existent. Because Black is something that people gave you, because Black means that people who are having a white cultural experience, who created a society that's anti-Black, they don't have to look at the fact that these people are stolen. Their circumstances are a result. My benefits and my privileges in the system is a result. See, they don't want to say Africans, all these people are Africans. They separate you. And there are the master deceivers to be able to create all these little slightly hairline division, spaces of division among you. You all African, you Pan-African. No, but continental Africans have had a different social condition. Many continental Africans, their countries were just getting independence in the past 60 years. 65 years. Some of them are just getting independence. Remember, the Constitution in America is 200 years old, 1776. Right? Slavery, 1619, all of these dates matter. Reconstruction, 1865. The voting rights, 1965. All these dates are incremental processes for you to be able to look at this social landscape and see what you are seeing. Now, continental Africans are having a different social experience, but they're still African. They're still under the umbrella of this oppressive system that is now global, has branded itself to be global. We need to look at that. So representation is not sustaining enough for us to be able to pass on hereditary information as to what it is to be a normal, fully functional, and animated African. It is not sustainable. So when we go to jobs, and I'm telling you, I here to tell you, and many jobs I've been on, every time I go on these jobs, I'm dealing with other African people who don't have a confident way of being for themselves. They're not a fully functional animated African. So the moment I step on the scene, they never met a fully functional animated African. They don't know how to place me. They don't know where to put me. They're uncomfortable and they terrified because they think since I have so much plethora of information, I've mastered several different types of skill sets. I don't have a choice. I didn't have a choice. Failure wasn't an option. So, and this is why I say to you, African, I'm not telling you nothing that I haven't done. I'm not bringing you nowhere that I haven't been. You are the full source. You are the creation energy. So if you need answers, then you need to be getting them. I'm not dealing in the world by myself. But as to me mastering self, I got that. Now, I can't control what's happening in the matrix, right? I can't control other people. You know, I'm not talking about hocus pocus and manifesting all of this. No, there's a certain degree where that goes. But in practical terms, people make things happen and people don't make things happen. So the fact that we don't have fully functional animated Africans and a person like me keep running into hiccups and brick walls of people who are not in their journey, who are representations of brownness, who wear a little kente cloth every now and again, don't want a little mud cloth scarf, wear a little cowrie shell here and there, right? Because we think that these are the manifestations of Africanness, and those things they deceive us. Plan that your mind is deceiving you. We don't realize where the propaganda came from. I always got to take you guys back to propaganda and these little hairline division methods that's being inserted into our society today are the very reasons why they were able to haul 6 million Jewish people, white people who are Jewish, one set of white folks, went at another set of white folks without no regard. And carted them and organized in government and military and many moving parts and many people that go along every day, fry eggs and make bacon, go out there into the grill, cut down some wood for the tree. These are regular everyday people that were participating in the system that decided they were going to send 6 million human beings into a gas chamber and kill people and dig mass graves and just toss them in without regard. This happened in 1939, 1940, over 12 years span. This was happening right here on this planet, right here in full view of everybody's sight. So if you're not sharp and you're not seeing what's happening right now, and all these lines, these hairline lines of division, it's very easy to develop a system of propaganda to diminish the worth. And African people already have diminished worth. We see us setting ourselves apart. We see groups of us moving around and setting ourselves apart, which segues us into our next topic tonight and our, financial overview really quickly. The financial scoop around, is America just printing fucking money? Mm-hmm. Everybody's setting themselves. Asian folks got their stamp. Y'all not gonna sun us. Let's go to the door and listen. We learn from what y'all did to them black folks. Nobody had it as bad as African people. Even though we talk every now and again because we try to focus on human life, but as African people, we haven't gotten to that human, that world perspective conversation yet. We haven't gotten there. That's the journey. We hope to arrive there, but right now we're putting our masks on us first. And we're trying to get our situation and circumstance and deprogram and decolonize our minds and shift our default behaviors so that we can become fully functional animated Africans, so that we act and behave and think and do and maneuver ourselves into our best interest. And the fact that we do not do that should be an eye awakener to all of us. That we can look at other Africans and we can see us doing things that do not help us as a community, do not help us as a landscape, not just doing business with Africans. Because people say that all the time, we're going to do blah, 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 blah. That's a maintenance conversation. It's short-sighted. It works temporarily. It's not a long-term conversation because even with business, you're still functioning within the matrix. Somebody can still pull the plug out on you when they get ready. That's a problem for me because African people did not start that way. Remember, African people started the set. We gave birth to it all. Boom. We created it all. So I have an issue with an African having to stand subordinate to anything at any time with someone who can decide that on their whim can pull the plug on a carpet on our situation. and reset us, which they continue to do. In this moment, as African people, we are being reset. Our entire social landscape and community and everything that we know has been reset. It's been manipulated because it wasn't necessary for any of this to happen. It literally is being pushed. And when we see in society, when these types of things happen, these pushes are to create industry. These pushes are to create new means of commerce, new lines of business is what they call it. MBA on deck here, economic class, real quick, run through on the economics. It's just to create a new line of business. And they literally have created several lines of business. And I'm here to tell you, if you know anything about the GDP, America's Obama went out of office. They said the GDP was upside down. Trump came in, started printing money. This one here is in office, and he just printing money left, right, front, and center. Mm-hmm. So what you think is happening with the GDP? Clearly, it don't matter. They just be talking. They just be saying clever things, and they give folks PhD in economics and finance and all that just to pat each other on the back and blow pink smoke up each other's asses. At the end of the day, they don't mean a damn thing because they literally just go enter and they just print out tons and tons of money. So why y'all don't want to pay Africans their reparations? You know Africans is due redress. Africans and Africa is due redress. We're not talking about y'all went to whatever board y'all went to at the Berlin conference. Y'all go back to that table and y'all come out of that table with the figures. And we're going to see if we approve them. And that's it. And then you take your hands off, you take your military, and you leave these people alone. Now, you think 13% of the world population is going to do that? Because you know that's going to put them in a very vulnerable situation. You mean to tell me you got a building full of 300 people and 10 people, the 10 aliens come to the planet? You think 10 aliens going to just let y'all 290 folks just run around here and do whatever y'all want to do? They're not. They're not. Because they're trying to maintain control. Because of that 290 people on that 10, they outnumbered and outgunned. Period. The end. Because that's how they think. That is not common reality and thinking processes for African people. Mm-hmm. That's not our way of being. That's not the indigenous of this land's way of being. Around the world in Eastern, even in Eastern religion, and religion was their way of life. It's nobody's way of being other than people who have a white cultural experience. They literally came on the planet and decided that everybody was an enemy. And that they got to get and conquer and take as much as they can, because if they don't, everything is going to run out. That's a logic that they own and this theirs alone. And then they shared it with other people. They shared this logic with other people through propaganda. And other people are willing to believe it. Mind you, there are other civilizations and other groups of people who are now feeling that they are now also, I got to get on and get along, because if not, they're going to embargo us.
Right.
They're going to sanction us. They're going to do us like Haiti. Everywhere there are African people out here struggling. Under the hands of what? These folks. What they do. The higher you get, the whiter you get. Oh, you get white hate. This ain't got nothing to do with no white hate. This is basic mathematics.
And that's a matter of listening too.
Period. Because I hear people say all kind of foolishness things. I'm like,
they're not listening.
Excuse me, what are you hearing me say?
Right.
Okay, well, you're also hearing me through your prism and your limited scope. In order for you to hear what I'm saying, you need to be a fully functional and animated African for it to make sense. After that, you need to be a human for it to make sense. Because at no point was any of this landscape, even if you go back, we don't want to fault our forefathers for the decision that they make. Really, white man? That's what you can say to me right now, white man? You can tell me that we're not going to fault the decisions that our forefathers made as if your forefathers were retarded? What was wrong with them? Were they cognitively delayed? What was the problem that they needed to hang people on Sunday from a tree, 17-year-olds? I can't think right now. It's Jeffrey Williams, I believe. I want to say his name. Oh, give thanks, ancestor.
The one that started the Ross Tulsa?
No, okay. 17-year-old. He was cognitively delayed. They thought he was mentally retarded, like really mentally retarded. In a way, cognition, delays in cognition.
Got it.
And they put this boy on, and they got pictures of this boy right before they kill him. It's 3 white men. He's in cuffs. They're about to hang him, and he's just laughing. He's just smiling. You don't realize how serious it is. I've seen pictures. They got the black men. You know the one that they ran up and down. They dropped them in the heat. They dropped them in the fire. pulled him up, cut off parts of his limbs, castrated the man, pulled out some of his teeth, cut off his fingertips, drop him in the fire, pull him back up. This man is alive. This is a famous picture. Forgot which one it was. And they got the little girl right there. She just in the camera just laughing. This is fun to her. This is fun. This is fun to enculturate human beings to see other human beings this way, because that was behavior. That behavior was taught. That was a behavior to diminish other human beings in this way, and to take and to enjoy. You literally raise an entire society of sadistic individuals, of psychopaths, because it's inhuman to harm other people this way. It's not human. It's not a normal and natural way of being. Human beings are social creatures that are drawn to each other. That's the spirit of the energy. All things are drawn in the circadian system, in the rhythm of nature. All things are drawn together. If this is something that happens to you, then there's a glitch in your DNA or in your makeup. There's something biophysiological, physiological, programming-wise. There's something wrong with your motherboard that you have to deal with. That's not African people's problem. African people, you need to stay out the way of harm. That's what you need to do. In order to stay the best way out of harm is not to succumb in the system. It's to break away. I told you your real only play at this point, African, is not to play. It's not to participate. That's your greatest weapon right now. That's a nonviolent approach. You still need to be able to protect yourself if need be. But your greatest strategy right now is to disembark. Because it's gone on too long, and now you're in such a tight spot that I don't know that all of our people are fully aware of how tight the spot that you're actually in is. That your only play is to disengage. It's not even time to go fight. I tell these folks that are running around with weapons, you're going to kill other black people before you get to kill any white folks. If it ever went down on the street, you'll never get to white people. You'll be killing your neighbors, and there'll be other black people before you get to them folks. I'm not saying not to protect yourself and not to know how to utilize certain, protection methods, but I'm here to tell you, if you understand how tight our shit is, you know that, especially if you live in an urban city, and a lot of black folks live in urban cities, if panic happen, you're going to end up engaging other Africans before you engage any of the quote unquote the enemy. Mind you, everyday John and JQ public, white people are unfortunately perpetuators of white supremacy, but they're not having a reflection with the representation of African. If you're a fully functional animated African, you're in my presence, anybody who's in my presence knows a fully functional animated African. It's not a game. There are instructions, and there's behavior, and there's etiquette. So this is why I'm like, when you married to a white man, you got friends of white people, why aren't you giving them work to do? Why aren't you giving them assignments? Exactly. You're supposed to have work to do in the world. I give you work to do every time we come on here. Every time you see me, people try to avoid me because they know that I'm giving them work to do. Because it's your duty as an African.
And I'm gonna say that that's the piece particularly because people say, love is love. Like, why you should be like, no, it's not. No, if you're not examining, like Nephra before, if you're not examining the situation of you're giving them an assignment or pouring into the space, like this is what I'm dealing with. Here's how we're gonna attack this situation. If it's just getting along, it's like, we just love each other and that's it. We're just gonna act like things don't happen. We just cured racism. No, the fuck you didn't. No, you didn't. Right? You still actually have more. You actually have more work to do now, because now not only are you still have to actively heal yourself from your traumas and everything that's taken place historically with you as an African and getting into that identity, you now have to bring someone else along with the journey that can never actually understand it fully 100%. They may hear you, they may be with the groundedness of your humanity, but they will never understand the impact of you being a fully functional animated African in this space. Because you don't even understand it. Right? You don't even understand what that actually means. You don't understand 100% what black means beyond your skin color. Right? That's what a lot of these folks are dealing with. Right? Those that engage these conversations. If you're going to talk about standing up for Africanness and y'all not out there on the streets doing this, like doing the work, if you're not out there actively doing the work and breaking it down with each other constantly, Nephra and I are constantly, it's a daily existence for us to constantly be in this conversation. We literally this is why Soundbytes is what it is because we literally have the conversation every day. But when the camera is off, right? And we're not talking to you in this form. We're talking to each other constantly in daily space because we have to constantly examine and analyze the social landscape because it's ever changing and evolving ever so slightly. It may evolve abruptly, it may evolve gradually, but you got to be ready to be on your P's and Q's and be and adjust and swift and keep your head on a swivel when things shift, because one way or another the message is going to shift with you not being favored, right? So you have to be in the constant space to really shift when that thing occurs, when that happening occurs, right? So if you're not gonna have somebody with you, if you're gonna be in partnership with a person that's not gonna be the active partner you need to strategize and survive and thrive through these social inequities, these injustices, these straight deconstructions of a social landscape, right? Then you're not going to win, right? If you want to talk about winning something, you're not going to win just period in a game of just being, because now you're caught up in the confusion of whatever it is they have to break down, right? Because they were brought up in a certain type of mindset, right? They were brought up in a certain type of ideal. You got more often than not, you got this idea of like you're dealing with this person who they may have a racist grandfather, a racist grandmother, or a racist side of their southern family or whatever, and they're like they have to deal with the loyalty conversation and the quote unquote betrayal conversation of dissociating with them, right? If they really believe in that love, they have to believe in dissociating from what they're doing. And now you've broken up a family versus someone having an educational experience or a moment to transform the situation, because they should be actually the vanguard. They should be the we call it the ambassador. Thank you. Yes, exactly. The ambassador of that transformation of white center consciousness for the entire family. Not just let them go and just keep being racist until they die. That's not going to work. You get to be like, well, they're racist, that's fine.
You get, the whiter you get, and those same individuals are in facing places. They're lawyers, they're lawmakers, they're in
law
places,
enforcers.
They're over here creating curriculum at your schools.
Teachers.
They're monitoring. They're at all of these different facets of your social landscape. These are not just people. These people have functions in society. So this is why it's important that we impact them in our engagement, and they need to have work, because people make things happen, and people do not make things happen. So while you skinning and grinning and you out here hee and ha-ha, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because you have no hereditary information that gave you an inkling or an indicator as to what it means to be a fully functional animated African. You just over here carving and copying yourself at all of these different spaces and places, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then people don't understand why they can't get their minds grounded. You all over the place. You got seeded energy from all kind of mad space, and you don't know where you got it from. And then you're over here letting people who are having a white cultural consciousness guide your African soul and energy. How is this possible? How is this possible? This is absolute insanity. Baba Mlamu calls it menticide. And you know what? You want to get that book. Menticide. You want to understand how your mind died or how it was killed, so that you understand how to revive it. I used to believe that, we give our people lots of information, people will behave differently. Let me tell you something. People have not behaved differently. People have not behaved better. You know what they've been doing? They actually want to try to shoot the messenger. That's what they actually do. But I'm here to tell you, this is my process. I'm in the process, and we also need to let it be known that you are also in the process, whether you choose to participate or not. They say what? Choosing not to choose is a choice. Mm-hmm. So even though you think silence, if you choose silence, then you're choosing the side of the oppressor. Because in this day and age, there are no spectators in this game called life. You must be in the participation seat. You must be driving. So at the end of the day, we all have work to do. There's a reason behind the way that I do things. I just made a post the other day. I've gotten accustomed to being misunderstood. What did you hear me say? Like, really? What is your assessment of what you heard or what you thought you heard? Or with your limited consciousness, not to say that you don't have consciousness, because I've had conversations with individuals that are far more intelligent than I. But being a fully functional and animated African is completely different. You can be a subject matter expert in whatever you want to be a subject matter expert in. Several subject matters, as a matter of fact, it doesn't really matter. But if you are not a fully functional and animated African, wherein you have synthesized that information to support the efficacy and the sovereignty of African people and yourself, it didn't mean a thing. It really didn't mean a thing. This is a social landscape, and learning has always occurred. scholarly behavior, scholarly research, and ways of being have always been, because Africans were doing this long before they ever engaged Europeans and Caucasians. This was always happening. So to be intelligent and to get your cracker stamp of approval means absolutely nothing on the grand landscape when you are fully functional and animated African. Right? And I know some of us are a little bit lopsided because we're still in the rage space. So see, the folks of us that are still in the rage space, you're going to need therapy. You're going to need therapy. You're going to need some means to exercise, to transmute that hostility, that anger energy. Not to say that you shouldn't be upset. Baba Malemu calls it righteous anger. Nothing wrong with that. But you need to be able to be critical still in all things. You need to also be able to be a constructive in your solution-based creation, because your life and your energy force is impacting other Africans. So you have to be responsible for what you radiate in the world space. So it's not always time to be on the nines, ready to get it popping. That's not always what it is. That always in a constant state of suspicious awareness, yes, because you need to be aware of your 9 points at all times. But ready to be on alarm with your people, unacceptable. We've been beat up enough. We've been beat on and beat up enough. If you hear alarm coming from me, that's because it's protection. I want you to know there's a red light. Stop. I want you to say, I want you to hear alarm. I want you to hear need for protection, because when I say to you that I'm standing for your greatest and highest ability and your highest possibility, you need to know that I mean that. And I do that because of friends don't let friends do dumb shit. So I'm going to pull your coat and call you forward. Because guess what? There's benefit in you being a fully functional animated African for me. Because people make things happen and people don't make things happen. So when I cross your path, you'll say, here's the key. Come in. See, that's what will happen when you're a fully functional animated African. I don't have to worry about knuckling up with you and having Africans who don't have an identity, carbon copying and being mischievous and doing the things that they've been doing, because this is what they've been doing. Right? Because they don't have those imprinted hereditary information on what a normal African is, a fully functional animated African is. So they don't know what it is. They don't know how to take me. I don't mean call everything arrogant, I don't mean call all kind of stuff. And that's fine too. Don't matter. Unfortunately, in some cases, those individuals are in a position to impact my life on this social landscape, and that really pissed me off. That's the part that I got a problem with. So this is why it's important that you be a fully functional animated African. This is why it's important you're an African, fully functional. You go and make other Africans fully functional animated Africans, because friends don't let friends do dumb shit, right? Don't keep it to yourself. Help other Africans become fully functional animated Africans. Oh, I don't know what that means. Well, guess what? I'm here to tell you there's a long line of information that you're going to need to synthesize to put into your ways of being. And it's going to be a lot that you're going to have to empty out, because you got a lot of garbage up in there. A lot of things that I do. So my sister girl earlier today, I don't take in certain types of environments. I don't take in certain types of conversations. I don't sit around grievances all the time. I got my own grievances. Why? Because I don't sit out here and throw up and vomit it all up in your face. And I'm living in this life. What do you think? You don't think I'm having the same experiences that you are? Yes, I am. What is wrong with you? What do you mean? Like, we are in this space, and we as African people need to really be having solid conversations and putting into play solid actions. And you, African people, because I've been having these conversations for over 25, 30 years with people, we are limited in our scope of creativity, because we are limited in the information that we have to process solutions for African people. That is what I discovered was the problem. Not that we're not intelligent, not that we're not creative, but when I talk to Africans and they tell me stuff like we need jobs, you haven't begun to struggle. You haven't begun to open your mind yet. You're not even on the line. You're not even at school yet. You're still in Pampers. I want you to know that, because there's a checklist for you so that you can make your own progress. Minister of Learning and Development. Make an assessment. Gain new skills. Put them on. Apply them. Make the assessment. See what works, what doesn't work. Get rid of this. Put some more of that. That's how that process of growing as an African occurs. But this can be manipulated, because this only works, what I can say to you right now only works because I've lived it. And because I am a manifestation of what I am telling you. Hesir is a manifestation of what we are telling you. This is not something that we picked up. We literally have to synthesize all of this information. You're not going to hear me regret. You just don't. There's just certain ways of being, and this is a journey that requires immediate attention, because this is how we will be able to support our youth. We cannot allow another generation of people to get in the hands of these manipulators and deceivers and have them having our people in shackles, because this doesn't end well for African people if we don't take hold of this thing. I'm telling you. We are in a place right now. We are extremely vulnerable. These folks done poison us deliberately. They literally have poisoned African people. They poured crack cocaine into urban communities all over the country. 30 years, 50s, 30s, 20s, 30s, 50s. Migration, the great migration from the South, passing through Jim Crow South after the 20s, after they burnt out Tulsa, Oklahoma, and all of these fully functional African Africans had progressive societies all over this country doing their own thing. People who had a white culture experience were mad about that. Didn't like it, jealous that they were struggling. Some of them, right? So you got to be clear about this conversation. This is a progressive social environment that was manipulated on purpose. 20, 30 years, here come the 50s. We got Jim Crow South. Here we go. And you know what's happening next? Africans are fleeing the South and they're going up north for where opportunities are, where the jobs are. So they can be what? Doormen, shoe shine boys, running grocery, domestic workers, and nannies. That's what they came up north for. Some of them, few of them, got some good skills. It took them welding skills that they learned from the grandparents and came and brought up in automotive skills. They did. But most of them were farmers. They were farm hands, right? So what were they doing up here? Domestic workers, because guess what? A lot of those farm hands couldn't read. Remember African? They weren't really reading. Black folks Africans were getting killed for being able to read. These things were intentional, okay? So there is a collapse in what happens in domino effect next. That's important for us to be able to see. So when you go, oh, I got a new car, I got me a new house, I got me a new this or that or the third. And when you look at that, that looked like something. You came from a family of folks that got burnt out, and you was able to kind of bring yourself up and scrabble yourself. And yeah, my granddaddy came here with $20 in his pocket. That looks like something. Mm-hmm. But when you go back farther than that, it looks like a demotion to me. Because I don't want to have to account to anybody about whether or not I can breathe. Folks can just walk up, police, the strong arm of the law can just walk up and just harass African people. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. So this is work that we got to do. If we don't like what's happening, it's work for us.
Absolutely.
And I sincerely hope that we as a community begin to put it into our life experience and make it a priority. It's work until it's not. It's work and it's difficult because you never did it before. And like anything new, it's a challenge getting started. But once you get started, it gets smooth.
Absolutely. Get in your process, folks. That's all we can tell you.
My word. My word.
This is Soundbytes International Radio, y'all. We wanted to get in on a quick
come in real quick.
Like I said, we know we're gonna get a little late, drop a little talk, a little conversation is always how we do. So we hope you stay in tune. We hope you watch the playback if you missed the conversation. And you continue to follow us and continue to join the conversations as we bring them in each Monday and on our platforms. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook. We're live on Facebook now, Soundbytes INTL Radio, as well as on YouTube at Soundbytes International Radio. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Instagram, Soundbytes International Radio, and you can follow our podcast of past episodes, past seasons, and take listen on the go and rewind it back on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, Soundbytes International Radio. So we thank y'all for being with us. As always, we close out with the high energy. So we want to take it to the I am, get that power of your I am, get that affirmation life on. Bricks, myself, Hess, and Agent Throwback. We will get that energy to you. So sit tight with us, jam out. Let's rock it up, family. So Soundbytes International Radio.
Let's do it.
Get into it.
I tell them I am. They tell me that's a cute affirmation, but it's not an answer. I reply, listen again. My affirmation is your answer.
It's the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am.
Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth can deny that. Hear the proof in the hi-hat. Hey, turn the reflection, I digress. I love me more, never love less. I love me more, never love less. Turn $1,000,000 dreams, yeah, how I manifest it. Look deep inside, yeah, you be the blessing. $1,000,000 dreams, yeah, how I manifest it. Anything I want, yeah, turn up. This is the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am. Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth can deny the power of I am. Handsome chocolate mofo, yo. Anytime I'm on GoPro, lyrical high home growth. Living spots with a coke so low. This is without morale so low. So I pitched it fast, pitch it slow. To the cows call home, bro. It didn't make sense. I was told as a child I wouldn't be shit. Revenge on my mind, started flipping the script. They fed me lines, started picking that shit. They treated me different, I embraced that shit. You know the ones that be closest to you to be the family ties. Sacred bonds, seeing plenty murder, dirty service, ludicrous. Cock up with a dirty burner, but better believe in me 1,000%. Bet I achieved what I was sitting here to get, and I couldn't resist. Kill these niggas with their toxicness without a popping pistol, monotonous. Told myself I couldn't rock with this. Hanging with goofies couldn't get rich. True blood suckers couldn't see bliss, couldn't see shit. Kiss cold face, nigga, you dead wrong. I ain't regurgitating, percolating, singing the same song. I'm blessed all day long, lame all day long. Having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. Fuck, nigga, I am.
Grind. I'm totally surprised that I ain't lost my mind. Had to take setbacks and learn to accept facts that those I gave jetpacks that no planes don't fly. Now I'm in no space, so wasting my time. Focus my glow to shift paradigms. My get up and go to keep my folks from dying. So I'm on the road with a goal that's refined. Yeah, riding with a mean vision. Perspective from every angle through a clean prison. Matter reflecting in technicolor and gray. When I lost my mother, found peace aside my queen, and I leaned in on my brothers. Yeah, thoughts was shaping up the grand scheme. I don't wrestle to the mat on my damn demons. In a matter of time, became a champion. Now my everyday mantra to do the damn thing. So my aim to pack out every arena, inspire the future leaders with every line of the leaders of God and unbelievers. Do what they can conceive us, know what we do and leave us. Rick, they never see us. Woo! God damn, I'm feeling good, motherfuck. What they say, I'm doing what they never would. Yeah. Get a grasp on your life, yeah. Pay many sacrificial prices. Go to your gun, playing nice, yeah. They gonna recognize who the nice is. From the north to the southeast, kicking others every lane, share about seats. I'm aligned with it, man. You cannot be. Anything I want, yeah.
This is the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am. Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth can deny that. Hear the proof in the hi-hat. Hey, turn the reflection, I digress. I love me more, never love less. I love me more, never love less. Turn $1,000,000 dreams, yeah, how I manifest it. Look deep inside, yeah, you be the blessing. $1,000,000 dreams, yeah, how I manifest it. Anything I want, yeah, turn up. This is the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am. Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth can deny the power of
Man, I ain't
I
talking
am.
in terms of I wish, I want to, or even I will anymore. Only things I proclaim, I do, I have, and I am. I do as my ancestors instruct. I have all I need to affect change, and I am a living magnification of God.